June 21, 1964, the remains of 3 civil rights workers were found buried in an earthen dam near Philadelphia, Mississippi. These 3 men were James Chaney, a 21-year-old African-American man, and 2 Caucasian men, Andrew Goodman, who was 20 years old, and Michael Schwerner, who was 24. Michael and Andrew traveled to Mississippi in 1964 to help organize civil rights efforts on behalf of the Congress of Racial Equality, also known as the Corps. The third man, James Chaney, was a local African-American man who had joined the Corps in 1963. They had been working to register black voters in Mississippi during Freedom Summer. On June 20th, Schwerner returned from a civil rights training session in Ohio with James and Andrew. The next day, June 21st, the 3 went to investigate the burning of a church in Neshoba County. While attempting to drive back to Meridian, they were stopped by Neshoba County Deputy Sheriff Cecile Price just inside the city limits of Philadelphia. Price, a member of the KKK who had been looking out for Schwerner and other civil rights workers, threw them in the Neshoba County Jail, allegedly under suspicion for church arson. They spent several hours in jail without the privilege of making a phone call. Price later let them out on bail. Once he escorted the 3 men out of town, the deputy dropped off a fellow officer in Philadelphia and raced back to the 3 civil rights workers. He caught Goodman, Chaney, and Schwerner inside city limits. Price loaded the men up into his car while 2 other cars pulled up filled with Klansmen. Price had altered the KKK of the capture of the 3 Corps members. The 3 cars drove down an unmarked gravel road called Rock Cut Road. Here, the Klansmen and Price shot Goodman, Chaney, and Schwerner to death. The death of the 3 men led the FBI to a full-scale investigation. June 23rd is when the case drew national headlines. The 3 men's station wagon was found by federal agents burned. Under pressure from Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, the FBI escalated the investigation, which eventually involved more than 200 FBI agents and scores of federal troops who searched the woods and swamps for the bodies. The incident caused the 1964 Civil Rights Act to pass Congress on July 2nd, and 8 days later, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover came to Mississippi to open a new bureau office. Eventually, Delmar Dennis, a Klansman and one of the participants in the murders, who was paid $30,000 and offered immunity from prosecution in exchange for information on August 4th, the remains of the 3 young men were found. The culprits were identified, but the state of Mississippi made no arrests. Finally, on December 4th, 19 men, including Deputy Price, were arrested by the U.S. Justice Department for violating the civil rights of Schwerner, Goodman, and Chaney. Charging the suspects with civil rights violations was the only way to give the federal government jurisdiction in the case. After nearly 3 years of legal wrangling, in which the U.S. Supreme Court ultimately defended the indictments, the men went on trial in Jackson, Mississippi. The trial was presided over by an ardent segregationist U.S. District Judge William Cox, but under pressure from federal authorities and fearing impeachment, he took the case seriously. On October 27, 1967, an all-white jury found 7 of the men guilty, including Price and KKK Imperial Wizard Bowers. 9 were acquitted, and the jury deadlocked on 3 others.